back, everybody, to the SmallTown Collectibles YouTube channel. I'm Jimmy Don Kerr. My guest today is a guy that, what I can really say about this guy is we became fast friends. And it's another one of the beautiful things about the community here on YouTube and the comic book community. When you've got a guy that is originally from Brooklyn, New York, that now lives in Texas, can somehow become friends with a guy from the hills of Eastern Kentucky on YouTube. It's just really kind of an amazing thing. And this guest has been one of those guys that really just kind of fell into the group of people that I am in, or maybe I fell into his group. I'm not sure, but we all kind of fell in together and, like I said, become fast friends. Has a really, really, when you watch his channel, what you're going to figure out pretty quick is that the community aspect of this thing of ours, as I like to say, this community aspect is really important to him. And you're going to see him on a lot of different channels, on live streams. He's got a sick slab collection. He does these shorts where he shows his slabs. He does an amazing comic book day haul video, and he's got a great Friday show that he does. I don't know if he's done it in a minute, but as far as the Friday night show, I've been on there, 3 Up, 3 Down. Absolutely, or called the pull list, I guess, at some point or another. Everybody join me in welcoming to 10 Questions, Nick from Nick's Kix&Comix.
I mean, it's tough to find enough things to say about me, I know, but you did a pretty good job, Jimmy.
Well, thanks. No, I mean, like, your channel's good. That's one of the things that it's a little different. I like the pull list. Mm-hmm. It was 3 Up, 3 Down at one point, but I think you changed it to the pull list, right?
I did. And I did that because I found that there's a certain expectation to have 3 stories, both good and bad. And not everybody might have those kind of stories. So I figured I'd change it up just to kind of loosen that expectation and not have so much pressure on the guests to kind of have, the expected content. So
right, I got you. But yeah, no, and then like I said, and we'll get into some of this as we go on when we start talking about the channel. But Nick, the first question is always on 10 Questions: what or who got you into collecting?
And at the same time, it's weird. Comic reading came to me from 2 sources. One source, I had an uncle who was big into flea markets, side hustles, stuff like that. So every now and again, when I'd see him in my grandma's house, he'd bring me a stack of DC books, right? Superboy, Lois Lane, never really the main titles, but the offshoots, kind of like the lesser known Legion of Superheroes, House of Mystery, just stuff like that I enjoyed to read. Around the same time, I had noticed a lot of kids at school were reading comics also. So while the uncle gave me my DC fix, the kids at school gave me my Marvel fix, and that both kind of collided at the same time. So it took me from there. I guess I followed along everybody's normal comic book path. You find the hobby, you collect for a few years, and there's something else that will maintain your focus, whether it be sports, girls, alcohol, going out, combination of all those. And excuse me, I've found the hobby every now and again through certain things that just, for me to happen along. I'll be at the newsstand, I'll see the ASM 347 cover, and I'll be like, wow, like that's a beautiful piece of art. Always like Spidey, let me find out what this is about, and I'll read it again. And then from that point, going into my late 20s, to be like, all right, well, let's see what comics is about these days, and let me go to the comic store and find out. Oh, it's a lot of cool stuff. DC's starting this new 52 thing. Let me hop on now. It's a pretty good hopping on point. Let me get all those, and we'll see where that goes. Oh, so we're having a baby now. Yeah, I don't really have time to read comics anymore, so let me be a father. So this last time, probably November, I had always now and again been reading comics digitally on Marvel's Unlimited. Mm-hmm. But I just wanted to feel what it was like to read a comic book again. And just that tactile feeling, I was like, wow, I really, really miss this. And that brought me full-fledged back into the hobby. This time around, I think I've gained more knowledge this time around, not only because of the YouTube thing, but there are just so many more readily available sources of information. So this time I learned about, pressing and cleaning and virgin comics and ratio books. And I still find myself learning nowadays.
Oh, no, absolutely. I mean, I have, excuse me, since getting back in the hobby, I said I've learned so much, this time. And you're right, there's so many resources out there now, through YouTube and social media and online to find out about books. I want to talk a little bit, Nick, about you grew up, was it in Brooklyn, New York is where you grew up? Mm-hmm. And what it was like to be a kid in Brooklyn who was interested in comic books, because I kind of feel like, and this is again from a complete outsider standpoint, when you look in to New York, you kind of feel like New York is a rough, tough city. You got to get yours, you got to earn it. The hustle's always there. Was it frowned upon to be a comic book collector as a kid in New York, or was it, there's just so many people that it was fairly easy to find a group of people that were into the same thing you were?
When I grew up, and I think this is the important part, the time frame I grew up, it was not popular. All right, there was a small smattering of kids, and I guess as young boys, you want to look towards that superhero aspect. It wasn't readily available for many reasons for me. Like financially, my family wasn't doing well. So I had to, any comics that I've read, were either gifted to me or I've had to get, borrow from a friend. All those things you said about New York are true, but what a lot of people I think miss out on is a deep sense of community. Like, it was the type of community, loyalty is definitely a big thing. I know if I messed up and I saw Mrs. Palmiotti from across the street, that I could get in as much trouble with her as I would with my mom or my grandma. So while New York is that hustle and bustle, there is a deep sense of right and wrong that I think is lost in that other stereotypical stuff. As far as finding comics, like I said, I would find them from friends, gifted from my uncle. There was one or two newsstands, these combo convenience stores that happen to have like a little restaurant in the back, sell some sundries up front. And there was always that spinner rack, comic books, Marvel comics. And, every morning waiting for the bus to go to school, always thumb through, always look through like, oh, that's cool. That's awesome. I wish I could have, 25 cents or 60 cents to read that, but I can't. It's just, and I think that's why I go overboard now, is because I didn't have that back then. So it's led my pull list to be, at times $200 or $300 a week, because I have that fear of missing out and making up for that void where I didn't have when I was a kid. So
no, that makes sense. I mean, it really does. I said, I think too, and I'm always interested to know, like, when you got back in the hobby, because I know what it was for me. Mm. I bought everything. I mean, if it was a cover A, B, C, D, E, I bought it all. Like, I had to have them all. Mm-hmm. And I remember when I first got back in, that was when Rebirth literally just started. Like, Rebirth came out, and that was a great jumping on point for me. And that was lucky for me because I'm a DC fan, and I was able to jump back in. Mm-hmm. How has the way that you collect since you started, back, you said in November roughly, when you kind of got back into it, has it evolved as you've gone, or are you still kind of going through that evolution right now?
Now it's actually, I found myself tapering off because I found previously that I was collecting stuff that I didn't necessarily like to read. And now I'm just trimming down to stuff that I want to read. So I'm going through now. I mean, aside from the big Walmart thing that's going on now,
Right.
I'm trying to get my pull list to 10 titles, and that's a fluid number. It could be less, it could be more, but I want to really enjoy everything that I'm reading. And I find that's hard nowadays. For me, in the beginning, this time around, and not many people. I've told this story, but I don't tell it too often. What really spearheaded my collecting again was I had walked out to the mailbox one day, and I'm flipping through my mail, and usually it's just the usual collection of stuff, bills, whatever, and I had seen something addressed to me from Wells Fargo. So I figured it might have been my mortgage, and I couldn't figure out why it was addressed to just me. So I had opened it up, and I'm reading through, and the letter to the effect said something like, due to our business practices, when you own such and such a car in 2000, well, not 2000, 2009, 2008, we found that you paid too much money. So here's this refund to kind of make things right. And it was a check for $11,000 and change.
Oh my goodness.
So I was ready to tear this thing up, just discard it as, junk mail. So I tear it up. I'm looking around. I'm like, where's the camera? And
Right.
I had to make my calls to make sure it's not spam. There's no Nigerian prince asking me for money at the end of this. So before I started getting excited about it, my practical common sense kicked in. So, I called Wells Fargo, and it was true. So my next thought was, it was 2008, 2009. I hadn't met my wife yet, so she's not entitled to any of this money. So I'm going to do something for me, so because, up until that point, it's all about the kids, it's about the house, whatever.
Absolutely.
So I'm like, what do I do? What do I do? So first thing I do is I hit eBay. I see what's the hot book at the time. Right around the time it was Venom 27, 26. I had no clue. All right, so I'm buying slabs, paying, $100 here, $100 there. Black Panther 2. Oh, the next movie might be Shuri. Let me buy a couple of these 9.8s. What else was there? Oh, Young Avengers.
Oh yeah.
A little bit of rumors. Let me buy this. Let me buy that. I bought 3 of those. Gore the God Butcher is the next big thing. Next big villain in Thor.
Thor. Yeah.
Miss Marvel is going to be on this TV series. Let me pick that up. What else was there? Oh, America Chavez, her first appearance. She's rumored to be that too. Let me pick up one of those 9.8s. Beta Ray Bill. All right, I'll pick that up too. So very quickly, those keys became part of my collection. All right, but in my intent is, I got this money. I'm going to make more money. All right, I'm not tied to really any of those characters, except for the Beta Ray Bill thing, which I really enjoy, but not enough if there's a mid 4-figure price on that book.
Sure.
So that's really launched me into the comic collecting. I don't think I would have been as heavy and as hard as I would have been. I don't know, honestly, if I still would have been around had it not been for that check. So
it's interesting. No, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, everybody kind of gets back in a different way, and everybody collects in different ways. That's one of the things I find very interesting about the hobby and doing this, show, is talking to everybody about how they collect. All right, so let's jump to question 2. And you've touched on this just a little bit, but let's take a little deeper dive. As far as, and let's talk about it in the different stages of your collecting. And like I like to read. Okay, and I've said this many times on here. I like to read not just comic books. I read a lot. I read financial books. I read novels. I read comic books. I just, in my spare time, I like to read. Right. And so comic books were kind of a natural thing for me. So I've shown you all these short and long boxes I've got over here at different times, and a lot of that came from just books that I picked up to read. So let's talk about in the different stages of your hobby. And let's say early, kind of the mid, and then the late. Did you consider yourself a reader of comic books? I know you said you didn't have like a lot of access to it, or were you primarily you just like to collect?
I've always been a big reader, no matter what. If it wasn't comic books, it was something else. My mom has always said that she couldn't punish me or send me to my room because honestly, that's where I want to be anyway.
Right.
So when it comes to reading, I really, really dove in. Not so much these days. Like comic books are good because, in 7 minutes it takes me to read a comic. I'm good. It's like my attention span has kind of gotten a little bit smaller. While I still love to read, I find it puts me to sleep. It's very relaxing to me, and honestly, I can't get more than a few chapters without, really knocking out. Like last night, watching In the Mix, I was able to polish off a few books and stay awake because those guys were keeping me laughing.
Yeah.
But if I read before bed, it's usually like 2 or 3, and it knocks me out. It knocks me out. Reading for me has always been great. There have been Stephen King books like The Stand, which is one of my favorite novels of all time.
Absolutely love that book.
1,300 pages, and I finished it in 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was that engrossed. But it takes that level of content to keep me interested. If I find a comic nowadays, if I'm not hooked in the first 2 pages, there's a good chance I'm not gonna read it. And I'll just file it away. For me, the hobby is both. Right, I love to read, but also that possibility of making money is very enticing to me. It's hard not to want to make money doing something you love. And honestly, my job is my job. It's not something that I've ever enjoyed really, but it's always made good money. It's always fit my life at the time. And I find comic books, the buying and selling of, the closest thing that I'll ever have to that career doing something that I love.
No, absolutely. I mean, I feel the same way. I mean, you've heard me, and you and I, Nick and I know each other, pretty well. Have gotten to know each other. And I had the uncle, like similar to you, that hustled, at flea markets and things like that. And that really, for me, is part of the fun of the hobby. Is, I don't sell like a ton of stuff, but I sell enough to pay for what I do. I promised Amy a long time ago that I would not use our money, our household money from our jobs, from our day-to-day lives to buy comic books, and now she will do that at Christmas and things like that. They'll buy me something, comic book related. But I generally hustle around selling mystery boxes and, like I had a guy the other day come up, he picked up a bunch of books from me. Like I do a lot of stuff here locally, similar to what my uncle did. It's just almost kind of natural for me, right? And kind of fun part of the thing. So question 3 is this. You're buying and selling, right? So you're doing some flipping. And I started asking this question because for where we live, you have to be creative in how you find your books, okay? Because we don't have LCSs like really, really close. We don't have like a plethora of them around us. You got to go to antique stores. You got to go to flea markets. You got to go, into LCSs and back bins and look. You got to look on eBay. You got to look on Craigslist. I mean, to find books, you have to do that. So do you have a favorite way to hunt down these books? Like, or have you gotten into like the antiquing and things like that, trying to find books, or are you primarily doing it online?
Actually, the online aspect, I'm really not tied to anymore because it's really not hard to find stuff online. Everything's there. I mean, it's just finding stuff at a price that you can deal with online.
Right.
For me, I'm lucky enough to have 4 or 5 different comic shops where I'm at. I hadn't explored the antique aspect, and I've been hearing a lot about it, especially this week, as to what may be found there. Facebook, every now and again, I'll check. but I find all the other sharks are in the water checking Facebook also. Even though I've come up with a few pretty good hauls from Facebook. I'll take a look there every now and again, but I think people overvalue stuff there. Like, oh, we got comic books. Comic books is hot now, so whatever I have must be, worth money. So primarily for me, it's just those LCS finds. Online is dangerous for me because I can just buy stuff.
I know, right? It's not like you're not even really spending money. I mean, it's just, it's like that,
Yeah,
it just goes so fast.
Yes. Like yesterday, we were on Mark's channel, and, The Crow is one of my favorite. Mark brought up the fact of, you don't have a Caliber Presents 1. How do you not? As a big Crow fan, how do you not? 10 minutes later, I'm in an auction. I spend $400 on it. So that's not hard for me. But I think the thrilling part for me is finding something when you're not expected to find it.
Yeah.
And that branches out into everything. Like for me, sneakers was one of those things, but it's incredibly hard now to find and purchase. Well, not find, purchase sneakers that I want to buy. Because I'm fighting a million little kids, younger generation. I'm fighting automated bots, and I can't do that anymore. But in finding PlayStation 5s, I'm on that. I'm on the websites all the time. I'm watching this. While most people have been waiting 7 or 8 months to get one, I've got 3 in my house, one for each boy. So that thrill of the hunt for me is also what fuels my comic hunting also. But I'm fortunate enough to have a few LCSs by me where I can have a good source of stuff to find. But
have you ever got into, one of the things I've really been looking into of late as I grow, the YouTube channel and what I have in mind for my YouTube channel and my participation in this hobby going forward, I've really been looking into collections, like, trying to buy collections. Now, you're 100% right, especially if you're looking on like Facebook and even Craigslist and things like that. People are like, oh, yeah, comic books are hot. I've got 100 books on a short box here. It must be worth $1,000, right. When it's really probably worth 50. And so that is challenging. But have you ever looked into or thought about trying to get into like the purchasing of collections and breaking them down and selling them off?
Yeah, and I mean, in the oddest way, my most recent story was I was at a Wendy's, and I was wearing a Vision T-shirt, and the guy at the window was like, "Oh, you're into superheroes?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm a big comic book collector." And he's like, "Well, I have a pretty big collection of comics that I'd like to sell." For me now is like, I think I have enough stuff to sell. Like I'm at the point now where I kind of want to start getting rid of stuff and focusing on a different aspect. So I haven't really thought much about collections, and I haven't really come across many big collections to buy. But I think if the price is right and there is a good possibility that there is some good stuff that, yeah, I'd always consider it.
Cool. Yeah, no, that's me. That's kind of, I've got a bit. I can't help it. It's who I am. I've got a business plan in mind. So of what I want to do, with the YouTube channel and things as I continue to grow and it has become a hobby for me. So that's the next question. Is question 4, is why you started a YouTube channel. Like, what was the push behind that to even jump into this?
Yeah, and I've been looking for that definitive answer the past 8 or 9 months.
Yeah,
I don't know what brought me into it. I thought, hey, it might be cool to kind of show people what I got and kind of give feedback. And I guess the whole pandemic thing kind of fed into that. I'm not really the type, maybe my personality and way that I come across on camera might seem that I need to be a center of attention, or, I need to have my moment in the sun, but I really don't. Those first couple of videos was just more about me showing what I got, so my first comic book video, and it wasn't really a comic book video, but I had bought this statue here.
Mm-hmm.
and there was a piece that I could not figure out where it went. So, for instructional videos, where does anybody go nowadays? And that's YouTube.
YouTube.
So the first guy I came across who had that statue was Gem Mint. So I found that video. I started to delve in a little bit to what else he had going on. And I saw him doing, all the other stuff, showing off what he had and what other links he had to in the comic community. I thought that was pretty cool. Maybe I can try that. I'm not that busy at work nowadays. I'm here in a house all alone. Maybe it'd be, cool way to pass the time. So I started that, and with my first video, I had met a few of the big people now that I'm really friends with. Lynx bought one of the first mystery boxes I got my hands on. Alan May, Wild Comics Unboxing, and that kind of led me into that wormhole of whose content was out there and what they brought to the table, and that kind of just got the ball rolling. So now while I'm still trying to find my niche, I'm trying to find what I'm good at in the community. It's fun making those videos, even though
Sure.
I do find it's a ton of work.
It really is. People don't understand how much work it really is. I said to, record, then you got to edit. If you edit, it's a lot easier to go live. I don't have that luxury of being able to go live all the time. Like, I would love to do that. It would make my life a lot simpler, but it would, I just don't have the time to do that. So I want to talk about your name. And you mentioned it a minute ago, Nick's Kix&Comix. So the Nick's Kix, I'm assuming, are the shoes.
Mhm.
And then obviously the comics. What is it about the shoes? I've never been a sneaker collector, right? Now, I've got one of the first pair of Jordans that ever came out that I had as a kid.
Wow.
And I just kept them. It was one of those things where I love Michael Jordan. I loved Michael Jordan, still do. But what is it about the shoes that is appealing, either as a collector, or is it a nostalgia thing? Like, what is it about the shoes?
That's another thing. Like, growing up in Brooklyn, that's a big part of it. Like, what shoes you're wearing in New York really influences people's initial opinion of you.
Really?
As I mentioned earlier, like, for me, I couldn't afford comics, so for me to buy shell toe Adidas when everybody's rocking the Run DMC stuff, it was hard for me. It was hard for my family. I got one pair of shoes a year, and I was wearing them no matter how many holes I had. So when I had my first job at like 16, I got that first paycheck. I'm thinking about what shoes I'm buying. Never again, now that I'm working and getting money, never again will I have to worry about shoes. So that tied into it for me, not having them and filling that void. The aspect of what you have kind of determines your social circles, I guess, when you're younger.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're wearing 4-stripe Adidas instead of 3, you're not going to be a cool kid, and you're going to get picked on. So having that, I guess, the fact that I can share my personality in my shoes was another thing. Also, I guess the thrill of the hunt later on, as they become more and more hard to find, harder to come by. The fact that I could actually procure a pair was a big deal to me. At my height, I probably had between 130, 150 pair that I would wear regularly.
No kidding.
Yeah. I would have, I lived in a basement apartment, and that had a staircase leading up to the first floor. And on every single stair, and I believe there were 20 stair, I had 3 pair on each. And on the landing, I would have, as many as I could fit. And then there were boxes in the corner. When I moved to Texas, I probably had 30. And after I got married and had to share my money, it's probably down to 10, because they're so hard to find nowadays. And the wife is just the CFO of my relationship. So
I feel you. No, I mean, well, like when you would do shoes, do you display shoes like you do comic books? Like I know you watch Franchise Kicks. He's got shoes back there. But as a shoe collector, is that something that you display like it's art in a sense, or is it something strictly like I'm wearing these shoes, it's a fashion thing, the whole deal?
It's and I'm glad comics have taken over, because for me, sneakers, there were certain criteria that I would have to meet for me to wear something. Like I'd have all of these beautiful shoes, Air Jordan 11s, my favorite, the Concords. I'd have to have a special occasion to wear them. And honestly, they would sit on the shelf for 364 days of the year. And the day that I'm wearing them, I'm prancing around. I'm looking where I step so as not to get scuffs on them. But to get to your question, I don't have them displayed. I do have a shelf on my closet where I do have all of my shoes, one pair per shelf. But I find the ones on the floor are the ones I'm wearing nowadays. So I put shoes on a pedestal, so to speak. And nobody's really seeing them other than my wife. I mean, I'll look at my display every now and again. I'll be like, not bad, but it could definitely be more. But I don't have them encased in like plastic containers or whatnot.
Right, nothing like that. Right,
like franchise does. Yeah.
No, it was interesting. Growing up, like we had what we needed. As my dad would, like to say, you can want in this hand and take a crap in this hand and see which one gets filled the fastest. He used to tell me that all the time. But he worked in the coal mines. It was good money when the work was there, right. But it was hit and miss, right? Like, you would work good for 2 or 3 years and you might be off for a year. They would lay off, and it was always, they were really careful about how they spent their money and saved. And so shoes weren't something for me. And really, everybody around here lived that same life, right? Everybody's parents were coal miners. Right. And so shoes weren't a big thing. There were a few people, like I said, that pair of Jordans that I got, I wanted so bad because my dad wouldn't buy stuff like that. He just wouldn't. I mean, he wasn't spending $100 on a pair of shoes. There was a pair of shoes at one time, they called them the Kentucky Dunks. And they were, the blue and white. They were the Kentucky shoe. The Kentucky basketball team wore them that year. And I wanted a pair so bad. And he was like, nope, I'm not paying $100 for a pair of shoes, back then in the 80s. So, but those Jordans, like I begged, and like I even worked for, like I helped pay for them. I just wanted them so bad. So he agreed to let me get them. But that just wasn't, that's the shoe thing has always interested me, because that wasn't really a thing here, because nobody could really afford them, and it wasn't like a fashion thing. You felt lucky just to have a pair of shoes. Actually, it was kind of interesting. So, but I've heard DJ talk about that on his channel too, being from Brooklyn, that it was almost like a fashion thing where that's what people wore, with shoes and a Yankees hat or whatever. So, question 5, Nick, and this is something that goes back to something you said about growing up in New York. And the community aspect of it. And that's the part that people don't really understand. And that is something about you. We give you a hard time about it, about being on all these different channels all the time. But one thing I really, really appreciate about you is you really embrace the community aspect of this. And, hanging out with the guys on a live, or, jumping on any interview show that we're doing, because you're into the whole community aspect of it. And it really kind of makes sense to me now, based on the answer that you gave about the New York thing, is because that's one thing I've always noticed about you. You're just really all about the community. Is that, do you think the way you approach this YouTube thing comes from the way you grew up in New York?
It's my friends now, most of my friends, all of my friends I've had since kindergarten, elementary school. That's my main group of people are all from elementary school. I find myself to be a pretty friendly guy, but in the end, prior to the YouTube thing, I'm perfectly fine at home by myself with the dog, my family. This YouTube thing is so unique to me. And you had touched on it earlier too. It's like you and I in real life would have never met or spoken.
That's right.
And just the fact that I'm able to get to know you through your videos and find out what you're like. This whole YouTube thing is very unique in that, where you can have a bond before you even speak to someone. And it's funny because I was watching this show, like Inside the NBA is one of my favorite shows all time. I'm a big basketball fan. I love basketball. It's part of me. But I love that show not so much because of the basketball aspect, is because of the dynamic between those four people. And I completely liken that to what's going on between all of us now on YouTube. You know, we all have a lane to fill, and we all fill it perfectly. Perfectly. So for me, and I guess this is one of the things I struggle with, like, I'm not a great storyteller like Remy. I don't have a magnetic personality like Panda. I don't have that wow it factor like Lynx does. So that's the kind of thing that worries me about where I fit into this whole YouTube thing, is like, what am I bringing to the table? You know, so and I kind of lost the original question, but for a bit.
Well, no, it's just more about the community aspect of it, because you just seem to really embrace it.
And I feel like, for me, those friends I've had since elementary school, it's kind of like what I found here on YouTube. You know, like, I feel, having seen all of your videos and knowing what you guys are all about, I kind of liked you before knowing you. And as an older guy who appreciates more than the younger guy in me, I can appreciate where Gary B comes from in just a human being kindness aspect. You know, from you just being that guy who's really well put together, a really, really well structured guy. I find that I want to get to know you because I want that in my life.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So if I can come be a part of that in any way, and I guess that's where the streams come on. It's not so much attention as like, I kind of want to learn and be a part of what people are bringing to the table. You know, so that's where I want to join the live stream. It's a good time, you know, and I want to make fun of that person. I got something to say. So that's kind of like where I want to hop on and be part of whenever, wherever I can.
No, and like I said, you know, it's just really one of those things. Like, it's one, like, you know, you're very kind in all the things that you said about everybody. But one of the things that I really appreciate about you is how community oriented you are, because I want to be more like that. Time for me is not necessarily, doesn't allow that. Right. And the work life doesn't allow that, but it's something I really appreciate about you, you know, like, really. And like you said, it's just weird. To me, it's still weird that I've never met you in person, but I really appreciate who you are, and I've learned about you through your videos and listened to you talk on your shows and different things. And there's really something to that, that I've said many times I didn't know I was missing in my life. And I found it, and now I'm not letting it go. Like, nobody will ever get me off YouTube. Like, it's just, I might only be able to do one day a week, but I'm going to do it, you know, and it may just be 10 questions, but you know, but I'm going to keep doing it because I really enjoy it so much.
Right. And it's weird to me. Like, I bring it back to that loyalty thing, and we've never met, you know, but our interactions, the people I interact with, if they tell me they need something, I would go out of my way to do it for them. And we've never met, but there is that honesty and that genuine part of people that I interact with that lead me to do that for people. So.
No, I feel the same way. I truly do. I feel the exact same way. If you ever needed something, you said, "Hey, Jimmy, you know, can you?" I would do it. You know, I just would, and because it's like that here too. Right. In Eastern Kentucky, is very tribal in a sense. It's very loyal. We're like, we can fight with each other, but you come attack us, we will all stand up together and kick your ass. Like, that is just that's how it goes.
That's a momentous ass whipping in the making. Yep.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. All right. So question 6, and this is something like I've asked you like in like DMs, but I want to talk about it. Like how you'll do these slab videos, right, of all these different slabs that you have. And I know that you're buying and reselling, as part of what you're doing, part of the hustle. And I appreciate that. But I want to know, how do you choose these books? Because, like, you have a great eye. Like, you don't just have, like, I'll see slabs, right? People will get things slabbed for different reasons, for their PCs and things like that. I know that you're, getting a lot of stuff slabbed for resale. And when it comes to these variants and these things that you're picking, like, what are the criteria for you in choosing those? Because you have a phenomenal eye. Like, every time I watch one of those, I'm like, damn, that is a sweet slab. And some of them I haven't even seen before.
Yeah, see, I wish that I did have a phenomenal eye, because if I had a phenomenal eye, I'd have a lot easier time selling the stuff that I'm getting.
Yeah.
I'm more tied into stuff that I like. Whereas it's good for building a collection, is not necessarily good for selling. A lot of it is tied to, I guess, my knowledge of what may go on, and I guess a good percentage of that is what I'm willing to take a gamble on. There have been a few things where I've been lucky in buying, and lucky that the news or my hunch has turned out. There has also been a few things, and what kills me nowadays is CGC turnaround times are really hurting me as to making a good choice and having to wait 6 to 8 months for those to come back. Because,
right.
A lot of the money that I've lost, and it hasn't been a ton, but it hurts me to lose $40 on a slab that I should be making money on, that I bought thinking I have a dollar value in mind. I would boil your question down to, I've been lucky so far. And my sources of information and my willingness and my time to research stuff kind of contributes to my luck. So I guess it's just doing the research, being lucky.
Well, my dad always told me that luck is when hard work and opportunity meet up. That's luck. And that's something that I see in in the choices that you make. Because like I said, dude, you, to me anyway, like, you have a great eye. Like, these covers that you have that are slabbed are so beautiful to me. Like, from an art, and it's weird. It's one of the nice things about comic books, is because there is an art aspect to it. There's not just the reading of the story. The art comes into it, and the cover art and things like that. And I just always enjoy the stuff you pick up, because I don't feel like I have a good eye when it comes to, like, I have pretty good luck with reselling some things, like knowing something, okay, yeah, this could get hot. Right. And I understand how the business cycle works in that. I told this story, I forget who I was talking to, but I was at a concert, and it was Poison. No, it was Poison, actually. Poison, Motley Crue, Def Leppard, bunch of these 80s bands that I liked. And Poison was the first concert that I ever went to as a kid. I was like 12, 13 years old. My mom took me to a Poison show. My mom, God bless her, she is, church lady. Like, if you could have seen her and my aunt at this Poison show with me and my cousins, it was so funny, because we were on the floor and they had to put in the earplugs, and I don't know, it was the craziest thing. And that was back when I think it was the Open Up and Say All tour for Poison.
Yeah. For me, anyway. That one CC DeMille is it DeMille?
CC DeVille.
That guitar solo in what the hell is this song? What's their popular?
You got Talk Dirty to Me.
The power ballad.
Oh, Every Rose Has Its Thorn.
Yes, that guitar solo in that song is always one of my favorites. Always.
Well, it was one of the things. I went to this show and I looked around. And I don't know why it hit me the way that it did. Mm-hmm. But I was looking around and I was like, this is genius. I watched these guys in the 80s. They were popular in the 80s. And now they're just repackaging what they're doing and reselling it to people now that they are older and have money, and can spend it. And this place was sold out.
Oh, yeah.
Sold out. And so it made me realize, almost like with the business cycle, how things circulate through. And I've started looking at things that I collected in the 80s as a kid, like G.I. Joe and Transformers, Thundercats, Star Wars, those things. And if you look right now, what's hot? All those things.
All those kids now have money.
That's right. It's all, we now have disposable income. And so that's one of the things that I've really been looking at. And I've really been hedging on DC with HBO Max and seeing the new Titan show come out and what they've been able to do with that. I feel like DC will end up catching some heat down the road, similar to what Marvel has. And that kind of leads me to question 7, which is, I mean, you've been back in this. You're a smart guy. You're seeing all these crazy prices. You're reselling, you're buying, you're reselling, you're doing all those things. Do you think that this can sustain itself, or do you think this was pandemic related?
I think it was a perfect storm of a few factors. All right, the MCU has been around for a while, but we didn't experience a boom. Like, I don't think there was a boom in prices like we've had recently. You add into that people staying at home, a lot more free time to kind of like go down lanes they've never went down before. And then to add in the factor free money that they've never had to kind of explore those lanes, I think it's all been a perfect storm of what led to the prices nowadays. Is it sustainable? No, I don't think it is. I don't think anything like that will be sustainable. That means, there's infinite money and infinite time, and that's just not true.
Right.
I think that the comic book community has gained a lot more followers, a lot more people in the community, but there are those flash in the pan people that will go away, and that stimmy money for sure is going to dry up.
Right. No, absolutely.
That'll lead, I think, to the equalization of what the prices are now. I don't think it'll necessarily bottom out. I think it'll just level off.
I find it interesting too. I mean, because really, it's almost been similar to my approach. But when people that I deal with in business and things like that, that there have been more people that had no interest in comic books or trading cards necessarily that are jumping in as investments. Mm-hmm. They're just, it's part of their portfolio now. Like it is for me, it's part of my portfolio. It's, something I consider, like my financial people now recognize my collection as part of one of my assets and something that we track for growth, which is really, I think, different than what, it's been in the past. So yeah, I kind of agree with everything you said. I think it's, I think the blue chip books will always gain in value. And especially when you look back on, and I was listening to you and Panda and Drac talk about it the other night, was how some of the books you thought you look at and you're like, oh, this book's beat to hell, I'm not buying this book. And then you realize that you could have picked that up for $5 and now it's probably worth $50. It's interesting.
Yeah, that too is part of what I buy, why I buy it. So for me, what was it this week? It was the Urban Legend 6, where Robin came out as bisexual. I have no problem paying $20 for it now, because I would rather pay $20 for it now than have to pay for it, later on down the road.
That's one of those I got lucky on. I legit yesterday ran back to my LCS and I picked up 8 copies of it. And while we're sitting here, I just sold 6 of them.
Well, did you set them for 30 or higher than that?
$39.99.
See, I set them for Batman Fortnite. Left a big distaste in my mouth.
I feel you.
I bought that thinking everybody's going to want it. So I set it at a price that I thought was lower, and that thing just crapped out immediately. So for me, I was lucky to pick up a few of these Urban Legend 6s, and I was like, I see them going for $40. Let me sell them for 30. This way I'm not stuck with them. So I sold a few yesterday for 30.
Yeah, while we were sitting here literally just now, I priced them out at $39.99. I found 8. There were still 8 on the shelf, and I grabbed them. Yep. And put them up yesterday on eBay and already sold a bunch of them. And that's crazy too. That's the part that's perfect as far as what we were talking about. That's the stuff I think that will stop eventually. is the real quick, maybe not on something like that. Maybe not that. Maybe that's not a great example because him coming out as bisexual, you're seeing a lot of that happen in the books right now, where you're kind of getting the first, especially with the movement for the transgender community, LBQT, whatever it is. You're seeing a lot of that movement. So I think those could be important books. But I think books coming out that are like maybe indies that are $3 that go to 50 immediately, I think we'll see some of that stop. I think there won't be enough people to push that market.
Right.
I could be wrong, but that's what I think.
I agree. I think fear of missing out on the next Something is Killing Your Children is driving that. And I know I'm buying a lot of number ones because of that.
Yeah.
But the whole thing with the urban legends, there's been precedent before, and those books aren't big books nowadays. You know, the whole Iceman thing,
right?
The whole North Star thing. Those you can pick up $4 or $5 nowadays. So I think the quick flash in the pan, quick turnaround sale, I think is a good thing when it comes in terms to this book. So
yeah,
good.
Okay. All right. So question 8, and something that we haven't really got to talk about before, and I thought we'd take the time right now to do it. Sports.
Okay.
I am a huge sports fan too. Obviously, Kentucky fan. When you're born in Kentucky, you come out, they put the Big Blue Nation onesie on you, and you're part of the Big Blue Nation. And that is it's life here. I'm not joking. Like, people think we're crazy, but the Big Blue Nation is a thing. And it's a family, and it is all because we don't have professional teams. Everything revolves around that basketball team, primarily now football, because we're actually starting. It's always been kind of a thing for football, but we just sucked, and we're starting to get good now. So for you growing up, I know you and I talk a lot about basketball. Basketball for me is probably the passion sport, like truly the passion sport. I love football, but basketball is probably my passion sport. Who are your teams growing up, or do you have teams now? Like what's your fandom?
And I told you, growing up in Brooklyn, it's all about loyalty. So you pick your teams when you're young, and that's it. You're stuck with those. Those are the teams you ride or die with. All right, so I'm a Yankees fan when it comes to baseball. Football, I'm a Jets fan, and I really wish I wasn't.
Poor guy. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Poor guy.
I am a Knicks fan. But because the Nets are now in Brooklyn, I will root for them and wear their gear just because of what it says, unless they're playing for when it comes to basketball, it's tough for me because I love the Knicks. I love them. But their owner has made so many terrible decisions that I cannot, in good faith, root for them anymore. There will always be my team, but I cannot watch it. Too much heartbreak and too many stupid decisions at the top for me to really say I'm a Knicks fan. All right, but if you ask me, I'll tell you.
Well, the Knicks, it's funny right now because the Knicks are like Kentucky North. You know, there's so many guys from Kentucky that played for Kentucky on that team right now. And then we always in Kentucky kind of liked the Knicks. And it had a lot to do with Kenny Skywalker. When he played for the Knicks, won the slam dunk contest. Funny story, when I was in college, I worked for Stanley Steamer. Cleaning carpets, and I cleaned Kenny Walker's house one time, and he had this mural on his wall, and it was the windmill 360 dunk that he did, and it was kind of went through. Yeah, and then had the slam dunk trophy was actually displayed in a case in there, and it was really cool. But because Kenny Walker played for the Knicks, he was like during my day. That was the first team. Him, Sam Bowie, and Melvin Turpin, the Twin Towers. That's the first team that I really remember and like loved. So Kenny Skywalker, and there was a lot of people my age that feel this way. When he played for the Knicks, we were Knicks fans. And then right now you've got Quickly, Noel, Randall, Knox. Who else is up there? You've got all these Kentucky guys. Kenny Payne, who was the assistant at Kentucky for years, is now an assistant for the Knicks. So it's almost like the Knicks are Kentucky North. Like, we love them.
Right. For me, and honestly, too, Kenny Skywalker was the last athletic guy we had up until recently. And aside from Julius Randle, who I don't believe is worth the money they just gave him, Emmanuel Quickly, I love that guy. And I hope they give him a chance to to blossom because he's fantastic.
No, he's a machine, dude. He's a hard worker, good kid, and I think he's a New York guy. Like I think New York will respect him,
Right?
As far as what he is. So,
as far as hockey, I'm not really into hockey, but I'm a Rangers fan. I will cheer for the Rangers. And what are we do? Basketball, football, baseball. What else?
Yeah. Just talked hockey. I don't. Is there soccer? Are you a soccer guy at all?
I played soccer once in high school. That was about it.
Yeah. What have you adopted since moving to Texas? Have you adopted any of the Texas teams?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I will ride. Like I said, I will ride or die with my teams until the day I'm gone. I love watching the Mavericks, but I'm only going to Mavericks Knicks games, and I'm wearing my Knicks stuff.
I love it. Perfect. That's how I am. Like I would, if I moved to, Alaska, I'd still be a Kentucky fan. Doesn't matter. It just is what it is. So did you, did you play ball in school? Did you play ball? Did you get to play in college ball? Anything like that?
Well, growing up in the time period, we grew up just being outside, playing stuff. Growing up in the projects I grew up in, there were always plenty of sports opportunities, whether it's stickball, football with equipment on Sundays in the snow. There was always that stuff. I always played organized baseball, I guess, in leagues like, the police athletic league, stuff like that. I pitched for a bit in high school, 10th grade. 11th grade was really my last year until I played basketball seriously. When I picked up a basketball on the playground one day, that was it for me. That was it. I loved it. To this day, even if I'm watching little kids, my hands get sweaty because I want to go in there and play.
Yeah.
I played, like I said, I pitched up until about 10th or 11th grade, and then I made the basketball team in 11th and 12th grade. And then I was just a knucklehead. For me, I didn't really hop on in college. I was like, all right, I'm free school. Had a pretty decent job. Let me just go do what I did. But whenever I played, I dabbled in college every now and again. I would play in the rec leagues there, and some of the college guys were like, as a point guard, that's the kind of guy you need. And I guess that kind of ties into the way I feel about the community thing too. Like for me, I don't need to score 50 points. What I do want, though, is I want 15 great assists that people will talk about. So for me, playing it is more of a big deal than watching it. Like I can go weeks without watching a basketball game, but I have to play, at least once a week because that's where I get my enjoyment from.
Cool. No, I love it, man. No, we used to play. We grew up playing. Aren't there a lot of like really well-known like street ball courts in New York?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You have the courts at West 4th, and a lot of the times you'll hear about the tournaments up at Rucker Park. Honestly, I was never that good, and you will have NBA level talent playing at those parks, and just to get there and get a game in, it's not easy. It's not easy. So
wow, I know here, we would just ride our bikes up to one of the schools that had an outdoor court, and we would play. We used to do that every day. I mean, like legit we would ride our bikes up the road, play ball for 4 or 5 hours, come back to my house, go swimming, go back and play some more ball, come back and go swimming again, maybe hit the hills and, go romp around the hills or something for a few hours. But playing basketball was a huge part of my life. And then I played in school too. So, all right, now question 9, we're getting to the end here. And these last two are pretty basic questions. So number 9 is, do you collect anything outside of like comics? Do you do trading cards? Or I know you got a few statues and things like that, but when we talked about the shoes, is there anything outside of those things that are true interest for you, or are you more just kind of, hey, this is enough and I got my family?
There's so much cool shit to collect.
I know, there really is.
So much. I love statues, but the statues I want are so expensive. Like that one is a $1,200 statue that I only bought because I sold my motorcycle. And there are probably 10 other ones I would buy right now if I had the money. So statues are a cool thing, and I always look at the 6 scale figures, which are reasonably priced. I mean, but still, it's still like a $300 to $500 thing. Though that and comic books together, I couldn't do it. There's just not enough money.
I know, right?
And every now and again, I'll see cool pops that I like to have. Like now, I'm collecting a lot of the big 10-inch ones. So if I don't have to look for them, if I'm in Walmart and there's something cool that I like to maybe display, I'll pick those up. But it's comic books now, and there's not enough money to do anything else, really.
I know, right? It's so crazy. I said I do trading cards, but I only do Kentucky guys. The Kentucky guys, and I like to collect their autographs, like on a trading card. So I will pick up different variations, some they have in their Kentucky uniforms. Like Quickly, I have, his a rookie patch auto, with him in the Knicks uniform. I like stuff like that, but you're right, dude. And I said, and Funko Pops is the thing I'm trying to stay away from because I love them. Like, I just love stuff like that. Right. And I've collected a few of those, but mainly I've gotten them autographed. For some reason, I like collecting autographs. I don't know what it is, but necessarily, but I do. I enjoy it. So, all right, now, in question 10, last question is, does Nick have a grill that he is chasing right now? Something that if he could get, he would buy. Anything you're chasing.
Is money an object or not an object?
No, I mean, really, well, give me both. Give me the one that's affordable, something that you want that you could actually buy, and then one that you want that you'll probably never have because it costs too much.
See, for me, I don't think that way because I think it's just up to my guts. I mean, there's always a way to get something you want, I think. I would love to have an Amazing Fantasy 15. Do I need to have it in my collection? No. But if there's an ASM annual #1 that's in my grasp, I think I would buy that. I've had one before, and I think this is one of the real books that I really regret getting rid of. And not so much because of the book. I mean, because I can buy one right now. But in 2012, I had met Stan Lee, and we were in a small setting, just about 10 or 15 people. And he had signed that book for me. And actually, I forgot about these. He had signed it with Excelsior on the cover, which he never really does. But I asked him to do it, and he did it for me. That was like a 3.5, I think it was. And I sold that book. And I regret it because of what was on the cover, not so much because of the book.
Yeah.
What I've always maintained, what I want, and I think it would be a drop dead collecting for me, is the run of Giant Size X-Men 1 through Uncanny X-Men 144. And that's pretty much the entire John Byrne, Chris Claremont run.
Right. Yeah.
I want that in a 9.8. That for me would be drop dead. I would just buy weekly books after that. But that's probably a $200,000 investment.
Right. No, absolutely. No, that's a classic run, great run. And I'm not even a big X-Men guy, but that Claremont run is unbelievable to read. Like it is. It's just really good. So, all right, man, that is the 10 questions. Nick, man, thank you so much for coming on. I've really enjoyed, the past hour, kind of getting to know you a little better. And so just thank you, brother.
No, I thank you. And honestly, it's a humbling experience to have somebody reach out to you, especially like you, a very well-respected member of the community, wanting to know about me. So I thank you for that. Appreciate that.
No, man, you're awesome. There's a lot of good things. And if you're watching this and you're not subbed up to Nick, go over and sub him up. I mean, he really does. I'm not joking. He does these videos with these slabs, and they're usually shorts. Like he'll just kind of do them, and he's got this really cool music behind it. I don't know, like there's just this whole thing he does that works for me. Mm-hmm. And but he has a great eye for the slabs he picks up. It's a lot of good content, and you will see him around on the different channels. Cutting up with everybody. He's just a great member of the community, and you can just tell that the community is so important to him, and it's one of the things that I love him for. So
some may say too much.
I might say that in a DM. I might give a man a hard time every once in a while, but he's become like family. What do? You bust on each other. That's what you do. So, but no, guys, thank you so much for coming and spending a little time over here with me on the channel, getting to know my boy Nick just a little bit better. And of course, I want to always mention the code with Street Level Hero LA STC10. If you use that code, you get 10% off your order, but 25% of your overall order will be donated to the American Cancer Society for cancer research. So, very, very important cause to me. Nick took a big part in the Comics Curing Cancer that was done over on Cardboard Crazy's channel. Which was an awesome event. I think he set out to raise $4,000, ended up raising like $8,300, something stupid. I mean, like, what a community we have, right? I mean, it's just unbelievable. So, guys, Nick's Kix&Comix, go check him out. All this stuff will be in the description below. This has been 10 questions.
I can't say 10.
9.5 questions for Nick.
Sorry. See you later.